Right, in this video, we're going to see how we can do the coding for this activity that's called contact info. So we designed this in the previous video, and I want to go back to contact list now. So remember, here we set up the list. We have our list already with all the contacts in it. So what we want to set to this list now is I want to go and say tvlist.set on item click listener. So you're going to set an on item click listener, and you're going to say new on. So if you start typing on, you can see there it gives you the interface. You just click on it and it opens up the rest for you. So now this is the on item click listener, and this I is the position in where you clicked the list view. So just to be reminded, remember that here in this part where we got the list of all the contacts, we called it response, and we set that response to, in our application class, we had a variable called contacts. So we set that list view there. So if I click an item here, it will be in the same position that it is in that contacts list. And that's why we need the position here. So this position will tell me where in the list did we click, so that we can send through the information of the correct contact. So when we click on a new contact there, or when we click on a contact in the list, we want to go to a new activity. So we're going to say intent equals new intent. Where we are now is in the contact info activity, the contact list activity. And we're going to say .this, so that's the context, and the second argument is where we want to go when we click. So we want to go to that new activity that we created now, contact info.class. Right, so that is what we'll essentially do, but I want to send some data with it. So I'm going to say intent.putExtra, and basically what I want to send through is the index value that was clicked, so that we can refer to that same index value inside of my application class to this contacts variable. Remember that contacts variable there has now got access where? It has access to this response variable there, which is basically all my data from the database, or from the contacts table. So that variable contacts is what we want to get the index from. So we need to have the indexes then in the next activity. So I'm going to say input.putExtra in the index. I'm going to name it index, and then the value that I want to pass through is that integer value called I, which is the index value. So that basically, if I can just quickly explain there, if I click on this item John Rambo, then that I value will be a 0. So it's position 0 in my list, but it's also position 0 in my application class's contacts variable, which is the list of all the contacts. Right, and now I want to go and say start activity for result. And if you've got a problem with what I'm doing right now in this part, please go and make sure that you look at the videos again where we explain implicit and explicit intents. So I'm going to try and explain this again, but not go into too deep here. So to start an activity for a result means that we will go to the new activity and then come back to this activity with a specific result. So I'm going to pass in the intent here, and that will activate the new activity called contact info. But with it, I'm going to pass in a request code, and I'm going to set the request code. I'm just going to set it to 1. So the request code is if you have different activities coming back to this activity, you can identify them. So it's really not necessary for us to have a request code here, but I'm going to set the request code as 1 for now. Now then, what we need with this, so if we run this now, you will see it with, if we click on an item in the list, it takes us to the contact info class automatically. And then when we come back, we need to have a method. So I'm going to create a method, maybe just before this one. And the method that we want there, so you're going to right click and say generate and override methods. And the method that you're searching for here is the on activity result method. So you can just start typing on activity, and you can start seeing on activity result method. So after the call to super, you can take that away. And basically all we want to do is to check if there's a request code that is equal to 1. So remember that we set the request code here now. Where is it now? We set the request code as 1. So if that activity comes back, it will have a request code of 1. So we know it's that activity that came back to this method. And the only thing that we want to do here is to go to the adapter and notify that his data set has been changed. So basically what we'll do, remember that we click here, we go to contact info, but we send through the index that was clicked. So which means that in the application class, this contacts will be available to us. And if I go to that index in this contacts, I will also get to the very same contact that was clicked here. So now in the next activity called contact info, we'll be able to change that specific contact, or we'll be able to delete that contact. And when we come back here, if we changed or deleted, we want to let our list view know that some of the data has changed and it must recreate that list view. So this is how you do it. Adapter.notify dataset change. It will go to the dataset, which is the contacts, and it will update accordingly. Okay, so I'll explain this again when we are done with the next activity. So basically now what happens is we need to go to contact info, but we've sent through some data which is index. Right, so let's go to contact info, the activity again. So you remember we've set up this contact info activity and we linked up all the components in the previous video. So there we've got Ivy call, Ivy mail, and so forth. So just after where we've got our button submit there, I'm going to add a few more things here. So when this activity loads, we do not actually want to see these 4 components at the bottom. So I'm going to set, or basically just take them away by calling etName.setVisibility, and we're going to say view.gone, and then they will not show, or that specific one won't show. So I'm going to do the same for etMail. I think I'm just going to copy this line, and we're going to paste it here. Maybe paste it again. So it's going to be etName that we want to hide. We also want to hide etMail. We also want to hide etTelephone, and we also want to hide the button. So that's btn submit. Okay, so when we start off with this application, we want to have these 4 components at the bottom to be gone. But when we click on edit, they will show again. Okay, so that's just the first step that we need to do there. Then after that, let's get this data that we pass through, that's called the index. Let's get that index. So we're going to say int index equals get the intent that started this activity dot get int extra. So remember on this side we said put extra and we passed in an integer. So on the other side you say get intent dot get int extra because it was an integer, and you only need to display the name there. And what did we call it this side? We called it index. So I'm going to add the name there as index, and it will retrieve the value. If it cannot retrieve that value, we'll have a default value that it will set to 0. I'm going to make this one final because we're going to use it throughout and we do not want it to change. So I'm going to make that variable final. So now we know exactly which index value was clicked in the application class's variable called contacts. Let's go to etName, and we're going to set the text there. We're going to go to the application class dot, we called it contacts, dot get, and now we can refer to this index. So that index now will get me that specific contact that was clicked, and we can call get name, and that gets me the name, and it adds the name to the edit text. So remember, we want to fill in these details now automatically. So that's what we're currently doing. On the edit text, go and set the name. Then etMail.setText also from the application class, also contacts, also get, also index, and we want to get the email to set it there. So I'm going to copy this now because we're just retyping it the whole time. So it's etMail, etName, and then we want to go with etTelephone number, and there we will get, I'm not sure, I think we call it number, get number. Okay, so now we get the number there. So it's the name, the email, and the telephone number that we get there, and we set them on this activity. So this one, and this one will be set for the current user. So now we also want to set those 2. So that's the next part. So I'm just going to paste those 2 again. And then this next one we want to set is TV char. And for that one, this will be TV name. Okay, so we're going to go to the application class, contacts, get index, get, in this case, we're going to get the name. But on the name, we want to first convert it to uppercase and then get the character at position 0. So that's the first character, just to show the character there. And then remember to just add some text there. Okay, so now for the next one, TV name, we want to get contacts, get index, but instead of get email, we will call get name. Right, so that should work now where we get all the data for that specific user that we clicked. So let's quickly run this application and see if we can get it at this stage to work. Right, so now you can see we're logging into the app now. Automatically, there's the list of our contacts. I still only have the 2 people there. And now if I click on John Rambo, you can see it's J. John Rambo. Now these we can't see because we still need to do the edit button there. So if we click there on edit, it should open up these. So you can see at least when I click on an item, Peter Pan, it's Peter Pan's data that I see this side also. Okay. Right, so now let's quickly do the edit part. So for the edit part, I'm going to use a variable at the top, a Boolean variable, and I'm going to call it edit. And right from the start, I'm going to set this to false because right from the start, we are not editing anything. Right, so when the user then clicks on the edit button, there's edit. We're going to change edit. So we'll say edit should be not edit. So if edit was false and we click this, it becomes true. If it was true and we click it, it becomes false. And then we can just test if edit is true. If it's true, then I'm just going to take this where we set the visibility on those. If it's true to edit, we're going to set the visibilities to visible to start seeing them again. Let's just set that one also visible and this one also visible. But the else part is the user clicked again on that edit and then we want to hide it again. So then edit is false, so we must hide them also all again. So they will go to gone. So let's just see if that works now. If we run this, right there we're logging in again. And let's see if we say the list of contacts there. Go to John Rambo, click on edit, opens up. You can see all of John Rambo's data is there. If I click on edit again, it closes it. Open, close, true, false, the whole time. So we've got all the data for John Rambo there. If we come back and we click on Peter Pan, open up, you can see it's Peter Pan's information that we've got there. Now let's quickly do the last thing for this video. So we're quickly going to do the call and the email buttons. And then on the next video, we'll see how we can actually change the data, edit it, as well as delete. So let's just do these 2 first. So we're going to go to Ivy Call, and inside of Ivy Call, we want to call now, we'll be able to call this specific contact. So I'm going to say URI equals, and we're going to use the telephone property there for the intent. So we're going to say, go to the application class, go to the contacts, which is the list of all the contacts, and get it at this specific index that we're currently at. Remember, we have the index there that came from the previous activity. So get it on that index value, and then you call get number to get the telephone number. So that's the telephone number of the contact that we want to call. And then we'll say intent equals new intent, and we're going to have intent.action dial. Right, and then we'll say intent dot set data, 1 bracket too much there. Okay, so we're going to say set data there, and then we're going to refer to the URI class. So it's URI dot pass, and then your URI string. So we just pass in that URI there that we had. So if any of this is weird for you, or you don't know what I'm doing here, please refer back to the videos on implicit and explicit intents. Okay, so then after that, setting it up, we can go to say start activity, and we pass in that intent. So basically we're just saying we want to call this telephone number. It's the action dial. So we shout out to the system, is there something that can help us to dial? And then the phone's own dialer will pop up and we can dial that specific number. So we'll test it out now. Right, so the next part is the email. For this, we're also going to say intent equals new intent. And for this one, it will be intent dot action underscore send, and we close it off. And now for the rest, we're going to say intent dot set the type, And the type must be the following, so make sure you type this correctly. It must be text and a /HTML. And then we close it off, and then we're going to say intent.putExtra, intent.extra_mail, email. So we want to add an email address there. And then we're going to go to the second argument and say, let's go to our application class, do that contacts variable there, which is the list of all the contacts. And on that, we want to get the index there where it was clicked now, and we want to get the email address. Okay, so basically we're saying put extra, it's the email where we want to send it to is this email address, and then we will just start the activity. So we're going to say start activity. And then if you want to create a chooser, you can do the following. You can say intent.create chooser so that the user can choose between different email applications. So I'm going to say intent there as the first argument. Second argument is the title. So we can say send mail to, and then, or let's just say it like this, send mail to. Then we go to the application class, .contacts again, .get again, in that specific index where we are. I think I'm just going to go to a new line here, to that index where we are, and then we're going to call get name. So it's going to basically say, going to have a chooser where you can choose the different mail applications, and the heading will be send mail to, and then the contact's name. Right, and now this should work. So I'm going to stop this and run it again, and let's look at our intents there to call or mail this specific contact. So there we're loading again, logging you in, please wait. List of contacts. There's my list. Click on John Rambo. You can see there's the emails and whatever. If we click on call, there we have the number that we can call, and we can just call there. If we go back, you'll see there's the mail. Click on it, and you can choose either send the mail to using Gmail or whatever mail application. And unfortunately, I need to set up my email account here, which I'm not going to do. But on a normal phone where you've already installed or already activated your Google account or whatever email you've got, you can then choose the email application and send the email using that specific application. Okay, so that's it for this video. You see that our edit part is opening up and closing. It's not actually editing yet, so we'll do that in the submit button, and these two are working. But basically editing, the submit button as well as the delete button, we'll do in the next video.